Hey everybody, it's Renee, and today I want to talk to you about freelancer finances. So this is my WordCamp Kent presentation, and I'm recording it after the fact. The presentation was this morning for anybody who wants to see it between now and when it comes out on WordPress TV. So here we go. So a little bit about who I am and who I'm not. So first, I am not a certified financial planner. I'm not an accountant. I'm not an attorney. I'm not a financial expert of any kind. However, I am a freelancer, possibly like you. And this is not a hobby for me. So this is my livelihood. So I have to make sure that I do it well. And I also do like money. So I feel like that makes me extra qualified to talk to you today about finances. So before we talk about some specifics, so before we talk about, this is how many accounts you should have, or this is how you should move your money from account to account, or things like that, or these are the spreadsheets that you should have, I feel like we should talk a little bit about how you feel about money. So think a little bit about your mindset and your attitude toward money. So are you scared of money? Do you think you're bad with money? Do you think you deserve or don't deserve money? Do you think that people with money are greedy? So these are just a few questions that I want you to think about. So if you think that you like money, but you don't actually like it, so if you have some unconscious feelings about it, you're going to push it away. So if you don't think you deserve it, you're going to push it away. So the spreadsheets and the accounts and all the information I'm going to give you might not do you any good unless you feel like you actually deserve the money. So just think a little bit about your mindset and your feelings, and make sure that you address those feelings before you dive into this kind of work. I also want to make sure that you know that you can be creative and like money at the same time, or you can be creative and be good at finances at the same time. I think that some people think that if I like math, that means I'm not creative. So it's like an either or situation. But really, it's what you work on, right? So anything that you put effort towards, anything that you work on, you get better at. So you can be the best, awesome graphic designer ever, and you can work on your finances and you can be good at it. So don't think it's an either or situation. There is a set of links, like a really big long set of links, and there's a couple links for this slide specifically for a few books that I really like. So one is You're a Badass at Making Money, The Secrets of the Millionaire Mind, and there's a book I just started that I really like so far, even though I'm only on chapter 1, just came out, called Happy Money. So you can check those out to see if any look good for you. One other thing I forgot to mention was it's kind of like losing weight, right? So you know that you have to count calories or exercise or eat a variety of foods or things like that. But if you don't address those subconscious beliefs and those unconscious feelings, you might not be successful. So again, I know it's a little bit woo-woo, but just think about your mindset and your attitude toward money before you dive into all the specifics. Okay, so you need a system. Now, I'm going to talk to you about my system or pieces of my system today, but really the ultimate goal is to figure out what works for you. So start small and know that it's going to take some trial and error. So the things that used to work for me don't work for me now, and it's just an ever-evolving process. Okay, so different things work for different people, different things work at different times, and there's no one right way to do any of this. So it's really just figuring out what works best for you. So think about what would be a good system. Maybe take some of my ideas, maybe look at some of the references that I'm going to give you and figure out a system. And again, trial and error. It might just be trying something, oh, this doesn't work, trying something else, oh, I really like this, let's see if this works for me. So you need a system. Now, 3 rules I think of a good system. So the first rule is it should be simple. Okay, we're not going to do anything super complicated here because really, who has time for that, right? You have client work to do, you have marketing your own business, you have other things to do beyond just worrying about your finances. So it should be simple, and likewise should be easy. Okay, we don't want anything difficult. Anything, again, that takes too long, is too difficult, too complicated. We're going to throw all that out, okay? It needs to be simple, it needs to be easy, and it should be fast, okay? So we can't, again, we don't have the time to spend on all of this stuff because our primary business is probably maybe building websites or graphic design or content creation or marketing, things like that. So we need to spend time on that, the majority of our time on that, not so much time on our finances. So simple, easy, and fast. And really, we're more likely to stick with it if it is simple, easy, and fast. So we'll talk a little bit about automation, and that's going to go along the lines of a system that is fast. So anytime we can automate, that's what we're going to do. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about pricing. So think about why you're freelancing to begin with. So is it to just barely get by? I'm going to say no. Or is it to provide for you and your family, to do well, to be independent? So you want to have these things in mind when you are, just navigating this whole freelance world. You need to have a bare minimum rate. Okay, so how much do you need, and what is that bare minimum rate? So I have a bunch of links in the resources that I'll share with you at the end on how to calculate your hourly rate. But here's a quick, easy formula I use, which is how much do you need per month? Multiply that by 30% for your taxes, and then divide that total by 4 weeks in a month and about 20 hours a week. So I say 20 hours a week of billable time because you will be probably working more than that, but that time will not be billable. Okay, so following up with leads, working on your finances, doing your own marketing, your own email newsletters and blog posts and things like that, that's not, you can bill that to anyone. So about 20 hours of billable time a week. So that's going to be your bare minimum rate. Do not take work less than that rate. Okay. If you take work less than that rate, one, the math is not going to work. Okay. So it's not going to work if you take less than the minimum. Another reason you shouldn't do this is because you won't have time to take on higher paying work. Okay. If you're spending time doing low paying work, you're not going to have time to take on higher paying work. Also, clients who don't appreciate the value that you're providing, they want to pay less. So you're going to have a more difficult time with clients, and you've probably heard this in some of the other sessions today, and you won't get any good leads from them. So if you do work for good clients, they know other good clients, potential clients, and even just a lead generation right there. So don't take work that is below the minimum. Now, you might want to do some work for free, maybe, okay, and you want to be really strategic about this, and I'll give you a link here. So exposure is not a good reason, but one good reason might be if you're venturing into a new territory. So if you want to offer another service that you don't offer now, you could potentially take on some free work to build your portfolio, to build a case study and things like that. However, in general, don't take on free work. Okay, so initially you might want to charge hourly, and again, not below that minimum rate. But as you get faster, you'll see that you're then making less, because money in this case is tied directly to your time, and eventually you're going to run out of time. So you might want to, as you move on, go to project-based work, fixed price, retainers, something like care plans or recurring income. But in these cases too, I would still track your time, something like Toggle. I use FreshBooks. Still track your time just to make sure you're profitable. So if you're pricing out, a project-based, set of work, and you think, okay, maybe it's going to take me 20 hours. This is my minimum rate. I'm going to add maybe 20% because, it always takes a little bit longer than you think it's going to take. So you give them the price and they agree. And then as you're tracking your time, you're like, oh my goodness, it took me so much more time than I thought it was going to take. If you didn't track your time, you're not going to know to get better next time. Okay, so I would still track your time. That's my personal opinion. Also, don't forget to increase your rate over time. So I know some people who have been doing this a really long time and they've never increased their rates. You have to increase your rate. You expect people that you do business with to increase their rates, right? So maybe if you get haircuts at a certain salon or something like that, you know that those rates are going to be increasing. There was one of the questions actually in the session of someone who was worried about increasing their rates. They're like, how do you actually do this with existing clients? And I've talked with several people who have increased their rates, and the general consensus is that even though you're afraid that the clients are going to leave, the clients, they don't think anything of it. They expect that it's going to happen. And you're providing value. So it's expected that you're going to increase your rate. So go ahead and do it. I'm giving you permission. So some of this too, it takes some trial and error. It takes some, let me try this project base, let me try this fixed price, maybe set this client up on a retainer. What works best for you and the client, and don't think that you're locked into any one type of work. So I do some hourly work, I do some project based work, some fixed price, I have a retainer. with someone, and I do some recurring care plans and things like that. So I have kind of a mix of all of this. So, it's a marathon, as somebody else said in one of their presentations, and it's just kind of navigating this whole thing. So don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to, up your rate. You could also, too, talk with people who are in the industry and kind of try to gauge what their rates are. Some people publish their prices on their website. You might think that what you're charging is a lot, and compared to everyone else, it's next to nothing. So keep in mind the pricing. Okay, so let's talk about the #1 rule of finance. And I wasn't sure how to phrase this slide, but I did ask in the audience, and someone did get it. So basically, the #1 rule of finance is you have to bring in more than goes out, right? So you have to make more than you spend. So how do you know? How do you know how much you're making? How do you know how much you're spending? What's coming in? What's going out? We're going to talk about invoicing, expenses, and spreadsheets. So that is next. Okay, so invoicing. So invoicing should be easy and it should be quick, right? Just like we talked about before, part of that good system. I've talked with people before and they're like, I hate invoicing. And even in the audience, there was one woman who was like, invoicing is terrible. Invoicing should be the best thing you do, okay? It should be quick, it should be easy, it should be fun, because this is the part where you get the money, okay? So maybe you already did the work, maybe you're going to do the work, give me a deposit, I promise I'm going to do the work. This should be awesome. Now, I talked about using FreshBooks. Wave is another application that I've heard good things about. Some people use QuickBooks. I don't use QuickBooks. I have heard that it is very complicated. So that violates one of my rules of a good system, that it should be easy. So I'm not using QuickBooks, but feel free to experiment, check these things out. Don't wait to invoice. Don't sit on the invoices, okay? Because that is money that's sitting in their pocket when it's not in your pocket, okay? So don't wait to invoice. And if it's easy, it should be no-brainer, like here, generate invoice. So like I said, I do some hourly work, and whenever it's time to invoice, whether it's at the end of the month or every 2 weeks or whatnot, basically what I do is I say generate invoice, because I have tracked the time, and so FreshBooks knows what the rate is and how much time I've spent, so it's super easy. In addition to that, I accept credit cards. So at the beginning, when you're freelancing, you're like, I don't want to pay that fee, every dollar counts, and I totally get that. But accepting credit cards is a lot easier for some of my clients. So not everybody has checks, which, okay, I get, it's 2019. But also you can get paid so much faster. So when you send an invoice and you accept credit card, some people pay that right away, which is awesome. You don't have to wait for the check to come in. And they said they sent the check and the mailman didn't deliver it. Now it came, and then you have to deposit it, and all this hoopla. Okay, so it's easy. It's saving you time by accepting credit cards. So anything that you can automate. Now also on my site, I use a plugin called WP Simple Pay. I have the pro version of that. For my care plans, I have people, they go online and they can pay. They enter their credit card number in, and it just does it every month. Okay, so nobody has to do anything other than that very first thing, and it just bills them every month, and that goes to Stripe. And we'll talk a little bit about Stripe coming up. But again, easy, so easy. I don't have to remind anybody or anything. One last thing that you should do with your invoices too, if you can, is set up some automatic reminders. So let's say you send out an invoice, it's due in 30 days. Set up a reminder 7 days before. And you can set this on the invoice, at least in FreshBooks, but check the program that you're using. To remind them, hey, this invoice is due in 7 days, you haven't paid it yet. You want to pay it now. Set a reminder for 7 days later, or 3 days, 4 days, however you want to set it. But hey, don't forget you haven't paid this invoice. So these things will save you time in that you don't have to do all of the follow-up. You don't have to constantly be hunting clients down and you haven't paid this and, yada, yada, yada. So these are a couple of things that I think, are helpful in terms of invoicing. Okay, expenses. So when I was younger, and still now, my dad owns a garage, and it's all paper. Okay, so no computers, paper system there. He has this really big box. I'll make a big box, but you can't see it because I'm in a little circle. And anytime he would buy, a part from, a vendor or things like that, you get the paper receipt and he puts it in. There's a little drawer a bunch of little drawers in the box. So at tax time, which is, maybe like in mid-March, we'd have to go through, pull out each drawer. You have to organize all the receipts by vendor and by date, and then you have to add them all up with the adding machine, staple it. And these are the things that we would then take to the accountant, to do the taxes. Oh my goodness, so much work, so crazy. So it's a totally different time now, right? We're working online. I bet you do a lot of virtual work. There's so many things that you can do now instead to make this so much easier for yourself. One thing, again, talking about FreshBooks, but this is another feature that I use all the time. I just take a picture of my receipt and I enter that expense immediately. So I bought gas on the way to WordCamp, take a picture of that receipt, enter that gas, travel expense, done. Okay, I don't have to worry about this at the end of the month or the end of the year or a couple weeks before tax time next year. Another thing that I have set up, I use Zapier, and I have Gmail, like a Google account. And whenever I tag an email, an expense, with the label expense that I've created, it will then create an expense in FreshBooks. Now, it's not complete. It puts the body of the email in the body of the expense. So later I have to go back and total the amount, or put the amount in, and I have to categorize it appropriately. But this saves me so much time that I don't have to filter through all of my emails and add all those expenses in. Did I add this in? Did I not add this in? Now, you might be using different tools, but think about how can you automate this? If you have expenses, what is the easiest way that you can get those expenses in? Okay, remember, easy, simple, fast. So a little bit about expenses. Now, let's talk about tools. So, we're in the website business, content creation, marketing, and things like that. Free tools are good. But later on, you might find that you do want to purchase some tools. So, at the beginning, you're like, oh, contact form 7 is fine. But as time goes on, you're like, oh, it's a lot of work and, email deliverability issues and things like that. Oh, maybe Gravity Forms is better. And you might be tempted sometimes, especially around Black Friday, to buy the super ultimate mega bundle forever license deal for the low price of $3,000. But you have to think about, do you really need this? Is this a tool that you need? Is this the price point that's okay for you? Okay, so you don't need all of the software at the beginning. You can buy things as you go, but make sure you're buying what you need and what you can afford. Think lean. So I don't know if you know about AppSumo, but it's a little bit dangerous. So AppSumo is a place where you can buy sometimes lifetime access to, various software tools. Just be careful. There's, I think, like a 30-day refund period. So if you buy it and you find that you don't use it, ask for a refund. But again, just be careful. Also, tool. What is the most simple tool for the job? Are you using a really complicated tool or not? Another thing I think you should do is keep a spreadsheet. Again, because I love the spreadsheets. Keep a spreadsheet. These are all of the subscriptions that I have, either lifetime or monthly or yearly. For example, FreshBooks, Dropbox. These are all things that I have purchased. I purchased Loom, so I'm recording this video with Loom. So keep a spreadsheet of that and just kind of keep an eye on that. Like, are your expenses getting out of control? Are you buying things that you don't need or you're not using? Also, can you pass on the expense to the client at all? So, kind of just keep an eye on that. Figure out what you need, how much it's costing you, and entering those as expenses too. So, okay. Ooh, I thought we were on the spreadsheet slide, but we're not there yet. So, let's talk about Profit First. Now, last year I read a book called Profit First, and it was awesome. So I'm going to introduce the Profit First theory to you. So I was already doing a little bit of this, but there's an extra added layer that I added in, which I think is cool. So I have my bank account set up at PSCCU. So I live in Pennsylvania, and PSCCU is a Pennsylvania State Employees Credit Union, offers business accounts. There's no fees. And I also have one account at Ally Bank. So Ally Bank is an online bank. They offer pretty good interest rates on just a regular account. So Ally doesn't allow business accounts, but for my profit account, I do have that there. So whatever bank you use should be easy to get the money in and out. And again, no fees. Okay, that's better for you as a small business owner. So basically I have 4 accounts. So I have a checking account, which is where my expenses are. I have a savings account for owner pay. I have another savings account for taxes, and then I have another savings account for the profit. Okay, so what happens is that when I get a check or a credit card payment or somebody pays on an invoice, I will take that sum total amount and I will divide it into 4 categories. Now there's certain percentages for each category, and we'll talk about that when we talk about the spreadsheet. But it basically tells me, hey, take this portion of the check and move it for taxes. Okay, just hide it, get it out of there for later, so that when tax time comes, oh, you can pay the taxes. Then, hey, move this chunk of money over here for owner pay. So when it's time to pay myself, there's money in there. Keep a certain chunk of money in that checking account for expenses. So I'm buying something, have some subscription or something like that. That money comes from there, and just take a little bit and move that over for profit. So this is how I have it set up. Now, another thing I do, I reconcile these accounts often. The book says, I think, on the 10th and the 25th, but you can do this whenever. I do it maybe weekly, at least a couple times a month. It just depends. But I pay myself a fixed amount monthly. So I pay myself one lump sum. And you could do this twice a month or every week or however you wanted to do it. But it's the same amount. So if I do really well one month and not so well the next month, I've paid myself the same amount. So it's keeping me consistent. It keeps me sane. It definitely helped in the transition from going from a full-time job where I had a fixed paycheck to freelancing. Now, as a business owner, you have to make sure that the pot that you're pulling from has enough to pay you that fixed amount. So we'll talk about that a little bit later, but know that you can pay yourself monthly and saving money for taxes too. One other thing too, I don't know if you saw my tweet yesterday, but I tweeted that I had just gone to the post office to pay my quarterly taxes, and I pay those via snail mail. So I actually have an envelope and a stamp and write a check. I stick it in there and I send it. And the reason I do that is because it's easy. It's so easy. I have an accountant who prepares all of that for me, and she makes the envelopes, and it's all typed up and all the stubs are filled out. All I have to do is write the check for the amount that she has told me to, stick it in there, stick a stamp on it, and send it in the mail. Now this might not be what I do always. However, it's what I do now because it's easy, and using the profit first system, I have enough money to pay the taxes at tax time. Okay, so I don't have to pay any penalties because I didn't pay my taxes all year. And I'll spare you that story about the time I didn't do that. And just say, this is what you want to do. Okay, so yay, spreadsheet time. So I have a spreadsheet, and again, it's linked in the notes that I'll give you. And it's a book with 3 sheets. So the first sheet, and what I have is another Zap set up so that anytime I create a new invoice, it has the date, the invoice number, the client, and the total amount. And then whenever I get paid, I put in the receive date here. So these are the first 5 fields. Now, notice I have taxes, owner pay, expenses, and profit. So these are the 4 accounts that I was talking about. There's just a sanity check. Now, you can allocate a different percentage for different things. So basically, the way I have this set up is I have 28% I'm setting aside for taxes, 60% I'm setting aside for owner pay, 11% for expenses, and 1% for profit. Now, as a small business owner, I actually work in my bedroom. My expenses are low. Okay, I'm keeping it lean. I'm not buying all the software. I have my computer, and I don't have a lot of extra stuff. So I don't have an office. I don't have any of those expenses there. So your numbers might be different. I do encourage you to do about 30% for taxes, just because you're never really sure. So about that much is good. Also, too, starting the system 1% for profit is just good to get the ball rolling. And as you make more money later, you can change this. So these are also on a line-by-line basis. So each invoice, I could allocate a different percentage. So what happens here is that I say, okay, 28% goes to taxes. So of the total invoice, that is $700. Okay, so I know that when I get this $2,500 from the client, I'm going to take $700 and I'm going to move it over to the tax account. Okay, so when it's time to do taxes, I have enough money, I just write the check. $1,500 will go to owner pay, $275 will stay in the account for expenses, and $25 goes over for profit. So this is how I have this set up. And there's a couple sanity checks here, you know, and a couple things like if I say, oh, I only want 10% for expenses, it'll say like, oh, hey, wait, these numbers don't add up, and it'll turn red. So that is how I have that set up. Now, notice too that there is one line item here for Stripe. So let's look at the next sheet and then we'll come back here. So I have another Zap set up, and I don't have any data here, but what would happen is at any time a client's credit card is charged, it will add a line item here, add a row here. So the date, their email address, the amount that was charged, the fee that I paid, and just a little bit about like the description of what happened based on the Stripe fields. So at the end of each month, I select all of the rows here for all the charges for that month, and I enter it as one line item here. And in FreshBooks, I enter that as other income. And then I do the same thing with the fee. I add up all the fees for that month, and I enter one item in FreshBooks for fees for April or fees for May. So you can do it a different way, but if you're doing some recurring income, creating an invoice for each one of those might be difficult. Okay, so it might be time consuming. And again, simple. So you might use different tools. You might have a totally different setup, but I just want to show you mine so that you can see just a way to do it. Okay, so you might like it. You might take this and modify it. Perfectly fine. The last sheet I want to show you is monthly revenue. So I borrowed this from Nathan Ingram. He has a blog post on this, and it's in my links as well. And if you are here tomorrow at WordCamp Kent and you want to check him out, I would definitely recommend it. He is a great speaker and has a lot of good information. So basically, you just have the month and how much you made that month. Now, for the first 12 months, you can't do a 12-month average because you don't have 12 full months. But on that 12th month, you can basically just add up all the previous months. And as time goes on, you can see if your average is going up or down. Now, you can chart this. I don't have it charted here, but you can just see, like, am I going up or am I going down? So it's just kind of good to get a big picture of these numbers and to see actually what's going on. So these are the sheets that I have for you. And again, modify, change, anything you want, just make a copy of these and, you know, make it your own. Okay, so next I want to talk about that your business is important. So it is important that you take care of your business just like you take care of your clients. So I recommend hiring an accountant. I think you should have an accountant. We're not in the accounting business, right? You're in the web design business, you're in the web development business, you're in the marketing business. Like you're in the business that is not accounting. So I recommend hiring an accountant, preferably one that you like talking to, and maybe one who works with freelancers. So, you know, so they understand you and your needs. I would think about setting up a business entity to protect your personal money. So I have an LLC, but, you know, check your state, you know, kind of get some information to see, you know, is that the best decision for you, and how would you structure your business? Also, too, I would recommend a contingency plan. So if something happens to you, what would happen to your clients? So if something happened to me earlier this year, I set up a plan, basically with 2 people. And I wrote some instructions down on how to find my clients and who I'm working with, so that they can talk with each other and they can work it out in the event that, you know, I'm out of commission for a few weeks or something like that. So I'd recommend that. And also to making time for your business, okay? Making time to work on your finances, to promote yourself, marketing, networking, following up with leads, all that good stuff. If you're totally focused on client work, when you finish that work, then what are you going to have? Okay, so you have to make time for this, you know, as time goes on. Like as you're working on client work, you have to make time for your business. Otherwise, you won't have a business to service those clients. So your business is important. Now, a little bit about insurance and retirement. So I think that you definitely should look into insurance. So some type of business insurance, whether it be some general liability, professional liability. Again, I'm not an insurance expert, so I would talk with maybe some fellow freelancers and see what they have. You know, if you have an insurance agent, you know, maybe someone local to you that you could ask, hey, what would be good for me, you know, to have to protect myself? Also to health insurance. Now, I've purchased my own health insurance, and luckily I just have to purchase for me. So I don't have, a family that I have to buy insurance for. So that keeps the cost lower, although not totally low. But so important, so important. I also have a high deductible health insurance plan. So I just set up an HSA, which is a health savings account, where the money that I put into that is tax-free. So that's helping me a little bit at tax time and helping me to set some money aside in case, I do have some health expenses. Also, too, if you have dependents, you should consider term life insurance. So if something were to happen to you, you would be able to, have them provided for, at least have some money for them. So I would recommend looking into those things. Don't ignore that stuff. Also, to retirement. So I know you're probably worried about today, and retirement is maybe really far away. However, it's good that it's really far away, because if you start saving now, the time will allow that money to grow. So it's kind of like, I think in the talk I used yeast. So if you put some yeast in the water, the warm water, and then it bubbles, and then it grows, right? Okay, so today is the best time. Actually, yesterday was the best time to start that, but today will suffice. So there are options for self-employed people, for small business owners. So a SEP IRA, an I-401k. I think there's a few others, and I have a link in the notes here for you. But you can ask around, you can do a little bit of research, and consider opening something and just funding it, even with a little bit of money every month, just an automatic contribution. It gets you going, it gets you moving. And as your business grows and as you do better, you can increase that amount of money that you're saving. But today is a great time to start. There's also tax advantages to some of this. So you're putting that money in pre-tax, which comes off of your bottom line, so you owe less taxes, at tax time. Also, too, I'll just leave you with this. And again, I'm not a financial professional, but you might consider a target date fund. So if you want to retire in 30 years, you can find that fund that has the special mix of things that will help you retire in 30 years. So just a target date fund might be something to look at. I do have a SEP IRA, and I have that at Vanguard. So that's the link that I'll give you there. So, but again, anywhere, Fidelity, there's lots of places that offer it. Just do a little bit of research, just like you would for anything that you were looking into. Okay, I think I have 2 slides left. So when things aren't going well, so sometimes things won't be going well, right? Okay, so you're doing a lot of client work and you have a lot of leads and it's going great, and then all of a sudden, crickets. Okay, and you might start to panic, like, oh no, I want to be busy, I'm worried, and ugh, yikes. So here's a few things, and a couple questions I want to ask, and just a couple things to look at, if things aren't going well. So 1, are you working enough? Okay, do you have enough hours? Can you go back to any previous clients and say, like, hey, do you need anything? Or, hey, I noticed that you haven't updated this in a while. Do you want me to take a look at it? Anything like that. You can go back to previous clients. It's easier to sell to a previous client than it is to a brand new client because you have that relationship. Also, too, how can you hustle? How can you call? Maybe do some cold calls. How can you look for more business? Who is your target audience? Who's your target client? Where are they? Do they hang out on Instagram? Is there a local meetup? How can you get in front of them? Okay. And really what you want to do is see how you can help them. Okay. Not just like me, I need money, but how can you help them? Look for problems that people have and how you can uniquely solve them. Always be networking, and not like that sleazy networking that nobody likes to do, but really like helpful. So if you're here at WordCamp this weekend, how can I help you? Do you want to talk about money? Do you have questions that I haven't answered? Let's talk. Really, let's just sit down. I just want to help you. No strings attached. Stay in touch with people. So those blog posts that you've been meaning to write but you haven't had time, now's a great time to do that, okay? That email list that you say you're going to send, an email out once a month or once a quarter, and you haven't in 9 months, great time to draft an email. Let people know. Publish some content. Be helpful. Get involved. Also, too, are you building at this point? So are you building your skills so that you can offer and charge more? Are you building your portfolio so that you can offer and charge more? Maybe you've done some really great projects and those have all wrapped up. Are they on your site? Did you do a nice big debrief? And then tell everybody, hey everybody, I just wrapped up this great project for this great company, and read more about how I was able to help them with their goals. Build your confidence. These things all build confidence, and that's what you want to do. You want to take advantage of this time. It's not a bad time. And make sure you're marketing yourself. So do people know that you're accepting new clients? How would they know if you don't tell them? So you can tweet, Facebook, whatever, let people know. And also too, it really helps if you have that good, it used to be called an elevator pitch, but I'm going to call it an Uber pitch now, because I don't know, you're like, who are you in an elevator with now? So when you get in an Uber and the Uber driver says, hey, what do you do? And you say, well, I kind of do some freelancing. I just started and I'm just learning about, like, no. Okay. You want a good sentence. You want to say, I help small creative businesses with their email marketing. I help so-and-so with such and such. What do you do? Confidence. You want to say it very succinctly, and you want people to know what you do so that when your friends run into people who need that, I'm going like this, but you can't see it, they'll be able to say, oh, hey, I know Renee does this. She can totally help you with that. Okay, let me put you in touch with her. Okay, people want to connect other people together, so they just need to know what you do very clearly. Okay, so spend some time on that. So these are good things to do when things aren't going well. Okay, so last slide is personal finance. So it's great that you want to get your business finances in order, and I totally applaud that, and I think it's, it's the best thing that you can do. However, if your personal finances also need some attention, I think you should put some time into that too, because you're not going to get your business finances in order when your personal finances are a disaster. So think about, how can I get my personal finances in order? So I'm going to give you a couple references of things that have helped me. The first thing is you need a budget. You need a budget.com, which is YNAB, Y-N-A-B. And it's great. I love it. And I talked a lot about this in the presentation too, but it's amazing from a product perspective in that what it does for you and how it helps you, but also in a marketing perspective. Because at this point, I've gone through the funnel, and I'll walk you through the funnel that I went through, and I'm an evangelist for it. I like it so much that I will tell anybody, I'll tell you, I'll tell somebody on the street how much I love it. I've been using it for 4 years now, 4 years in August, and I still love it. It's still amazing. So I first encountered it on Reddit. So another reference I'm going to give you is Reddit Personal Finance. We'll talk a little bit more about that. So I first encountered it on Reddit. People are like, oh, YNAB, it's so great, it's so great. And I'm like, what is this? Especially when people are really excited about a product, you're like, is this a cult? Like, what is this? So you're reading a little bit more, and you're doing some reading, and then you look at the site, and you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. And they have a free trial. I'm like, oh, I can try that. They have a webinar. They do like live webinars, maybe not live. I don't know. They do regular webinars, courses, and they have a book and things like that. So you're working your way down through the funnel. And you're like, okay, I'll sign up for their email list. I'll try that free trial. I had a couple false starts. Like, you're trying to use it and you can't use it, so you go and get some support and somebody helps you. And you're like, oh, okay. You're like, oh, I really do. Oh, I have saved some money. Okay, I want to keep going with this. And then, you're really excited and you're like, oh, this is great. So then you buy it. And then, which I think is the pinnacle, not just that you buy it, but now you're so excited about it that you're telling everybody. Word of mouth. So great product. I love it. So awesome from both sides of it. A few books. So The Millionaire Next Door, Your Money or Your Life, The Richest Man in Babylon, Millionaire Teacher, I Will Teach You to Be Rich, Secrets of Six-Figure Women, all good books. And there's so many good personal finance books. So really any almost that you can pick up, just check the reviews like you would any other book. If you've heard of Dave Ramsey, he has 7 baby steps that I really like. He also has some books too. Susie Orman. I mentioned Reddit Personal Finance. When you go there, and again, I have the link, they also have a wiki, and they have a really great flow chart. So it's kind of like what to do with money, and a little flow chart, little graphical version. You're walking down the thing, different colors coded. So really cool, really like that. And there's also a site called Rockstar Finance that I like. And Rockstar Finance is a collection of personal finance bloggers. There are other people out there like me who really like talking about money. So blogs, podcasts, book reviews, apps, things like that. So all like, a collection of really great stuff. Now with that, I would just caution you to be a little bit careful, because you know that anybody can publish a blog, right? Anybody can create a site and put some posts out there. So Joe Schmo's personal finance site isn't exactly vetted the same way that like a New York Times best-selling, personal finance book is. So I wouldn't necessarily blanket take somebody's advice. I would, do some reading, and judge for yourself and figure out, what is true and what is not true. So just caution you there, but there's a lot of good resources there. So those are the things that I have to say about personal finance. And you can do it. Find something that works for you. So thank you so much for listening. Let's talk anytime. So you can find me on Twitter at Renee Morozowicz and my website, reneemzw.com. And there is a post that I have about this with all of these links in it. And it's a WordCamp Kent post posted on the June 15th here, Saturday, June 15th. And if you have any questions at all, please reach out. Reach out to my website, reach out on Twitter, flag me down in the hallway. If you see me at Sheets or something getting some gas, feel free to be like, hey, Renee, I have a question about personal finance or a question about business finance. Or I had a few people come up to me already and say, hey, Renee, have you heard of this book or have you heard of that book? Send me all the books. I love all the books. Give me all the references and the sites that you love because I want to check into those because I love it so much. So thank you so much for being here, and we'll talk to you soon. Okay, take care.